Hello, mighty companion. This is Earl Purdy, and getting ready to do another Course in Miracles lesson for you today. And we're going to do lesson 46. God is the love in which I forgive. I'm going to be giving you Course in Miracles definitions of these different words. So sometimes I'll substitute other words like God is love and forgive is correct perception. So it's really God is the love in which I correctly perceive. God is the love in which I correctly perceive. It's the same as love is the love in which I correctly perceive, which means God is the love in which I forgive. So I'm going to read this to you, and we're going to do this together, okay? God doesn't forgive because God is never condemned. And there must be condemnation before forgiveness is necessary. There must be condemnation. Forgiveness is the great need of this world. It's forgiveness. But that's because this is a world of illusions, which the Course says means false ideas that we want to be true to the point that we make them true. Those who forgive are thus releasing themselves from illusions. So those who correctly perceive are thus releasing themselves from false ideas, while those who withhold forgiveness, which is correct perception, are binding themselves to illusions, which are false ideas. As you condemn only yourself, so you forgive only yourself. As you condemn only yourself, so you forgive only yourself. Yet, although God does not forgive, God's love is nevertheless the basis of forgiveness, the basis of correct perception. Fear condemns and love forgives. Forgiveness thus undoes what fear has produced, returning the mind to the awareness of God. So correct perception undoes what fear has produced, returning your mind to the awareness of love. For this reason, forgiveness, which is correct perception, can truly be called salvation, which is healing. So correct perception can truly be called healing. It is the means by which false ideas disappear. Forgiveness is the means by which illusions disappear. Forgiveness is the means by which illusions disappear. Forgiveness is the means by which illusions disappear. Today's exercises require at least 3 full 5-minute practice periods and as many shorter practice periods as possible. Begin the longer practice periods by repeating today's idea to yourself: God is the love in which I forgive. As usual, close your eyes as you say, God is the love in which I forgive. And spend a minute or two in searching your mind for those who you have not forgiven. Spend a minute or two thinking about those who you have grievances toward. It doesn't matter how much you haven't forgiven them. It doesn't matter how much you have grievances toward them. You have forgiven them entirely or not at all. You have correctly perceived them entirely or not at all. Remember, forgiveness means correct perception, which is correct interpretation. If you're doing the exercises well, you should have no difficulty in finding a number of people that you haven't forgiven. It is a safe rule that anybody that you don't like is a suitable subject. Anybody you don't like, that's a suitable subject. Anybody you don't like. Mention that person by name, each one of them by name, and say, God is the love in which I forgive you, whatever their name is. God is the love in which I forgive you, whatever your name is. God is the love in which I forgive you, whatever their name is. So you say, God is the love in which I forgive you, then you state their name. So that's, God is the love in which I correctly perceive you. God is the love in which I release you. These are all definitions of forgiveness. The purpose of the first phase of today's practice periods is to put you in a position to forgive yourself, to correctly perceive yourself. After you have applied the idea to all those who have come to mind, tell yourself, God is the love in which I forgive myself. God is the love in which I forgive myself. God is the love in which I forgive myself. God is the love in which I correctly perceive myself. God is the love in which I correctly perceive myself. God is the love in which I correctly perceive myself. God is the love in which I forgive me. God is the love in which I forgive me. God is the love in which I forgive me. God is the love in which I forgive me. Then devote the remainder of the practice period to adding a few related ideas, such as God is the love in which I love myself. God is the love in which I am blessed. The form of the application may vary considerably, but the central idea should not be lost sight of. You might say, for example, I cannot be guilty because I'm a son of God. I cannot be guilty because I'm a child of God. I have already been forgiven. No fear is possible in a man beloved of God. There is no need to attack because love has forgiven me. The practice period should end, however, with a repetition of today's idea as originally stated. The shorter practice periods may consist either of a repetition of the idea for today in the original or in a related form, as you prefer. Be sure, however, to make more specific applications if they are needed. These specific applications will be needed at any time during the day when you become aware of any kind of negative reaction to anyone who's present or not. Whenever you feel yourself reacting to anyone who's present or not in a negative way, that's when you should say the idea. In that event, if there's somebody you're reacting to in a negative, fearful way, silently, and I repeat, silently, tell that person, looking at that person or thinking about that person, tell that person, God is the love in which I forgive you. God is the love in which I forgive your butt. So even if you're mad, it doesn't make any difference, still say it. God is the love in which I forgive your butt. Or God is the love in which I forgive you. You don't have to necessarily say it in a really nicey way. It can be, God is the love in which I forgive you. God is the love in which I forgive you. Doggone it. So it can be, God is the love in which I forgive you, which is God is the love in which I correctly perceive you. So that's lesson 46. And I'm going to say it for you right now. God is the love in which I forgive you. God is the love in which I forgive you. God is the love in which I forgive you. God is the love in which I forgive you. God is the love in which I forgive you. God is the love in which I forgive you. God is the love in which I forgive you. God is the love in which I forgive you. God is the love. 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 God is the love in which I forgive you. God is the love in which I forgive you. God is the love in which I correctly perceive you. God is the love in which I correctly perceive you. God is the love in which I correctly perceive you. God is the love in which I correctly perceive you. Forgiveness is correct perception. God is the love in which I forgive me. God is the love in which I forgive you. God is the love in which I forgive me. God is the love in which I forgive you. Okay, mighty companion. Forward these videos. Let's spread it around. Forward these videos to people that you feel like would benefit from them. And check out my website at earlpurdy.com. Let peace extend from my mind to yours.